Alright guys, so every one of you know that I have taken a new cue. Now in this video I'll help you understand that what kind of things you need to see in a cue just to consider whether the stick, the shaft which you are trying to excel your game is whether a good cue or not. There is one most important thing which is the feel of the cue. The feel of the cue is something which is player specific. I cannot tell you about it. It's more of you have to understand that what is better for you. If you pick up anything, any cue, first importantly, if that feels in your hand, if it feels like a part of your body, that cue is somewhat good for you. But apart from that, there are some physical characteristics which we need to consider for the cue. Now, the first important thing which I'll tell you about the cue is that this is a cue from Maximus brand and the model is Legend. It's a decent cue. It's a fair price cue which I got at around 25,000. It's a good cue. Now let me take you through the characteristics which you need to know just before buying a cue because this is the most confusing factor. And this was the thing I was also confused at. I looked at so many cues, like nearly 50 cues, different type of cues I evaluated. They are limited brands, but I evaluated different models of limited brands which we have. So first important thing, in 25,000 you won't find handmade cues. There are many handmade cues which have more precision. This is more of a machine made. How do you know? The taper, the basically the butt over here, you will find it more symmetrical. That is not possible with the handmade cue. It's very clean, very symmetrical, quite everything is quite equal, which tells us that this is a machine made cue or a partially handmade cue, not a completely handmade cue. Now, what are the basic characteristics of a cue? First important thing is the taper, sorry, the butt over here. The butt over here there are different kinds of butt. One is a thin butt, one is a thicker butt. This one has a slightly thicker butt. I personally likes to hold a cue very lightly with a feather touch, like with a touch in which you can hold a bird and it doesn't dice and it also doesn't gets away from your hand. So it's a very loose grip which I used to keep over here. So the butt being a slightly thicker, it's very easy for me to grip over here. This is one important thing. Second important thing over here is the balance. So basically if you try to balance it over a finger like this, the cue is resting somewhere over here. If you see the butt at the end, it's quite like it's 16, 17 inches or maybe slightly more than that. So this tells us that it is a slightly or a very good balanced cue. It's not butt heavy, it's not front heavy. Basically butt heavy cues who has a heavy butt are good for positional, are good for a more control and more controlled slow shots. And the front heavy cue are more good for a, like you can say, the long shots. Now this is a balanced cue, means it's good as a combination of both. So this is the one important thing which you should know when you are buying this cue physically. Second is the taper. Second is this, not the taper, the shaft over here. Now this shaft over here, you see there are so many arrows over here. Now there is a relevance of these arrows. If you see in this cue, there are arrows, and in the starting, the difference between the arrows, if you see this difference over here and this small difference over here, then again slightly major difference. This is a very important part. Now this difference in the arrows tells us the age of the cue and also the speed of the cue by which it has grown. If these arrows are at an equal distance, this shows that the tree has like grown all across its life in a symmetrical, in a same fashion, with the same pace. Now this tells us that originally the tree growth was put quite fast, then it got slower when the spaces got slower. So if you have an even spacing, like it's not in this cue, if you have an even spacing in the cue, it's more of a dense cue, it's more of a good cue. And the number of arrows, by the number of arrows which when it keeps on increasing, the stiffness of the cue keeps on increasing. So it's ideally that if you have 7 to 8 arrows in your cue to have it, a combination of a flexible cue and a stiff cue. Now the third important thing is the tip over here. My tip over here is 9.6 mm. The lower you go, the more difficult it becomes. Means it's less forgiving when you go to the lower tip. Though the difference between 9.6 and 9.4 is quite negligible, you most of the time won't be able to tell it. But when you hit it with a ball, you can really feel, like you can always feel a difference that it's more forgiving when it's a 9.6 mm or major. So most of the snooker players who are at good level also, some at international level, prefer a cue which is at least 9.5 mm, which is a sweet spot. Now this is a tip, this is about the tip of the cue. Now the tip installed over here. Now there are different types of tip. The tip which I have installed is a very basic tip installed over here. But the point is, more than the brand of the tip which you have, it's more of the type of the tip you have, which is whether it's hard, medium or low. I prefer a hard tip because I like the sound of a hard tip, and then the shape of the tip. Now for me, it's a dome shape. After that, it's a dime shape, and then you have a flat shape also. It has a lot of relevance. It has a lot of difference. Now for me, the dome shape, being a ball, a round object, when the dome shape hits the ball, it like kind of strikes the ball better, grips the ball better. When it's a flat base, try to play with a flat base sometime. You will find the tip creates a lot of miscues. It's not able to grip the ball better. With this kind of tip over here, which most of the players don't prefer, this helps me creates a lot of spin, but obvious it helps me create a lot of screw back and without any effort. So this is all about the tip. The last important thing is the straightness of the cue. The only thing which you can judge the straightness is that just roll it on the table, a snooker table, and try to roll it. If this portion of the cue gets a bounce, then the taper is not right. But sometimes it's a straight cue, but sometimes the taper of the cue is not right. It's not properly finished. So sometimes it still bounces. So you need to evaluate that properly. And the last important thing is the vibration it causes into your hand. The more better the shaft is, the less vibration you get into a hand. For instance, if I hold the cue like this and hit it at the starting, you will feel the vibration in the hand. If the vibration is around 1 to 2 seconds, like around 1 second, then it's okay vibration, acceptable vibration. In this case, if I just hit it over here, I get a vibration of a second, which is okay because it's a normal thing of the ash shaft that it creates a vibration, but it should not be a prolonged vibration. Okay, now these are the important things which you need to know, the vibration and everything. Then it's about the feel which you have, which I told you in the very starting, which is more important. So whether you buy a 1 lakh rupees cue or whether you buy a cue like me, a 25k, it's more about how you feel it. So I think this kind of descriptive analysis of a cue helps you. If you still are not able to judge which kind of cue you want for yourself, you can feel free to comment. I can guide you with my limited experience and what I know about the cues. Thank you guys.